All right.
Is that doorbell sound like somebody's in the waiting room?
Yeah, it is. And I'll turn it off. Sorry about that.
Oh
I have,
no, I never heard it. It's funny.
yeah, I did that because I sometimes I do these things by myself, and like I'm really like into having things locked down because there's been a lot of mayhem with these meetings. Not ours, but one time we got locked out using Google Meet. Actually, we had a meeting set up, and somebody hijacked it and locked us out of Google Meet, which had no like security features at all. So then when I got this, I was like, man, I'm gonna lock this thing down, and I overlocked it. But I don't think it's overlocked right now. I need to give Autumn more permissions though.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, cool. Co-hosting. All right. Yeah. So we just put out. Everybody here is invited to a session. We're going to have two sessions next week. One on election day, and one on Thursday. A support session, just to drop in. Anybody can come and drop in and unload and talk and laugh, cry, whatever they want to do. Be there to support you. I was really bummed out that no library associations had really done anything like that I had seen. So we went ahead, Librarians with Spines went ahead and created one. And my idea, I don't know if it's Yago's and Autumn's ideas, but after next week, I want to turn around and go like, hey, library associations, like 3 people with hardly any resources were able to do this. Like, where were you? That's kind of my thing. If you don't know me, I like to Max Macias. I like to try to agitate from the outside. And so I work inside too, but inside is really constrictive and like non-changing very much. Been working diversity, equity, inclusion in libraries for oh, over a decade, and like all the way from ALA stuff, local stuff, and hardly anything has changed. If not, it's gotten worse. So I decided to start doing stuff on the outside, and part of that is our Librarians with Spines books, but other things too. So my name is Max Macias. I live in Oregon, and yeah, I'm a librarian. I work in IT full time. Libraries don't want to hire me full time. So yeah, that's me. But I'm happy in IT. And again, I like to be on the outside and make a living wage. To be on the outside and be able to agitate. And sometimes I'm talking with other librarians and I realize, oh wow, I have so much more autonomy than I would if I would be stuck under some library director dean's boot on my neck. So yeah, no offense to anybody that has that happening to them. I don't want that. And my whole thing is like I want to create change.
Hey Max, maybe is this an okay time? Just kind of like do intros now. I'll go next, and then Autumn. And thanks so much. Thanks for that, Max. But my name is Yago Cura, and currently I work for the LAPL. So I am firmly ensconced like in the beast. I do bilingual outreach work, so I feel very fortunate to do that. And I feel very fortunate also to be able to work with Max and Autumn. And I just wanted to say we really appreciate the support. And can someone mute the mic? It's coming through. But oh hey Javier. But we just wanted to say that we appreciate the support. We, for example, Javier Areco just joined us from Argentina, and if it wasn't for summer browning, like this really wouldn't really be happening. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for making this happen. And we're we're kind of the way that we do things is like we've already started. I feel like me, Max, and Autumn, you know what I mean? Like it'd be great if we could sit around and kind of like, make a committee for a committee. But I think what Max is pointing at, and I think what I'm trying to get at in this intro is that we've always had the idea that we've already started, like doing the thing that we're going to do. So without further ado, Autumn Anglin, the brains, the artistic, the vanguard really of this is Autumn. So please, Autumn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Autumn. I am the book designer and graphic designer, web designer. All the art stuff gets put on my shoulders. So I just thank you for reading the book. It means a lot to me. I'm so excited that you were all able to see all the hard work we've put into everything. So thank you all for being here.
And with that, I just wanted to, Javier, ¿te molesta decir dos o tres palabras? Just with about your work with Librarians with Spines, 2 or 3. It doesn't matter if it's in Spanish. It's okay. 2 or 3 words, dos o tres palabras. Just un saludo.
Muy bien. Buenas tardes, Yago, Max, Autumn. Un saludo muy grande acá desde Argentina. Disculpen que todavía no me animo a hablar en inglés. Mi inglés is very poor. Estoy
No, it's
aprendiendo
beautiful, man. It's
despacio.
beautiful. We feel you, brother.
Seguramente muchos de ustedes van a aprender español más rápido antes que yo aprenda inglés. Pero bueno, acá con mi amigo Yago siempre tratando de borrar las barreras culturales, porque esas son las verdaderas distancias que hay, barreras culturales, barreras idiomáticas, para poder acercar el norte al sur y bueno, estar en contacto. He participado en diferentes eventos y actividades, también una sobre COVID en español que se había hecho sobre diferentes temas y vemos ahí que la gente del libro, la gente de la cultura, la gente de las bibliotecas, en el norte tiene muchas cosas en común con la gente del sur. Lo que nosotros tenemos que hacer es puentes para eso. Así que bueno, cuenten con este amigo acá en el sur. Un abrazo grande desde Buenos Aires.
Gracias, Javier. And let me just real quick. Javier was just saying about bridges. We're like all book people, right? And so like, how do we make bridges between like book people in North America and book people in South America, right? Because we're all like Americans, right? It's like, I understand it's 2 continents, right? But they're connected through culture, history, and really, you know, we're book people. And so the reason that I wanted to introduce Javier is because me and him have been talking about actually translating the book into Spanish for Latin America, for, you know, obviously we would love to do it in Spanish and Portuguese, because let's not forget that Brazil is the largest country in Latin America, right? So it's not just about Spanish, it's about Spanish, Portuguese. But the reason I wanted to introduce Javier and talk about all this stuff is because you know, we're, like I said, we've already started doing the thing that we kind of set out to do, and that's kind of like what I hope we want to transmit to you guys. And it's not in a like weird like mansplaining or any kind of way like that. It's just really in a way of like love and like positivity and like collaboration, like real true collaboration. Because I'm about to blow your minds. I have never met Max in real life, and I've never met Autumn in real life. And the reason that I met Javier, who lives 3,000 miles away in real life, is because the LAPL took me to the Feria de Libros in 2018, and Javier was working for the Bibliotecas Populares, the popular libraries in Argentina. And so I think it's so, it kind of blows my mind that the person that I've actually met in real life lives 3,000 miles away, and the 2 most personal collaborators that I have at the moment live 1 state away, and like they you know, they could be fake news. Like Macias and Autumn Anglin could completely be fake news, and I wouldn't even know. So again, guys, we really appreciate the opportunity to kind of like show you our messy lives, really. Because like this is something that we live through. We were actually talking about yesterday, volume 3, like the damage that we're gonna do with that one. And like we're really excited about the possibilities, and you know, we don't mind sharing some like intimate details, because again, like we're not really competing with anyone except ourselves. um, and we're really moving at a pace of our own discretion, um, both in terms of aesthetic and style. And we really, to be honest, came to learn something from you guys. So we're hoping, um, to learn something. Do you guys have like how Summer, were there? I forget if there were questions or not. I'm sorry, my memory is like so.
Yago, can you introduce who this group is?
For sure, for sure. Um, so if I'm not mistaken, it's a group in Aurora, Colorado, Public Library.
It's
Right.
in, we're in, let me do it, Yago.
Sorry, sorry, Summer. I thank you for not keeping me flailing out there. I appreciate it.
Mhm. Yeah, so we work at Auraria Library. It's in downtown Denver, Colorado, and it's an academic library that serves 3 institutions of higher education. It's pretty unique in the country. So we serve the Community College of Denver, Metropolitan State University of Denver, and the University of Colorado, Denver. We have about 45,000 students. It's the biggest campus in Colorado, and we're very busy. CCD, the community college, is an HSI. Metro State University is an HSI. CU Denver could be at any moment, and they're talking about getting that designation. The most diverse campus in Colorado as well. And so we are the Technical Services Division. We purchase all the learning materials, we create access for them, we catalog them, create discovery, analyze them so we know we're making the right purchasing decisions, and then run our software that runs the library. And so this is our inclusion and equity group, and I think we've been around maybe a year, not quite. And we read materials together and we talk about them. We watch films together and talk about them. We recently read that book about algorithmic bias called Masked by Trust. That was great. And I think Katie was like, let's read this Librarians with Spines book. And I was like, what? That's Yago's book. Why didn't I think of this? Because he's a poet and I know him from Poetland. So it was a great idea. And we had a great conversation, maybe one of the best yet last time.
That's thank you, Summer. That's really, I mean, that's so comforting. I'm sorry, I really had no idea the scope of the work that you guys do. That's really impressive. And just for context for Javier, if I'm not mistaken, HSI is Hispanic Serving Institute.
Yeah.
Javier, HSI es un instituto que sirve específicamente a hispanoparlantes en Denver. So es un campus muy diverso. Okay, so I just
Sí,
wanted
en
to.
Denver, Colorado.
Sí, señor. That's right.
Sí, acá nos gusta mucho decir Colorado.
Oh, I think
Colorado.
we like to say Colorado too.
I love you, Colorado.
Thank you, Javier. We like to say Colorado too. It's a beautiful word. It really is. Thanks, Summer. I really appreciate that, and giving us an idea. And thank you for telling us that you enjoyed it. That's really kind of like it really means a lot to us. A lot of this work is like in the dark. So it's really great. Makes us really happy. Thank you.
Yeah. So we do have some questions here. Do you wanna start in on that?
I would love that. That'd be great.
Okay.
Next,
So
good.
we just read volume 1, and so I'll just start us off, but please everybody, all my colleagues, jump in however you wish. but what is it? The subtitle for this book is Information Agitators. So Max, what you were talking about, in an age of stagnation. And we talked about this at our meeting previously, but I love that subtitle. And we talked about, boy, is information literacy, is librarianship, is it stagnant? And this book was published in 2016, and it feels like it's just as relatable now 4 years later. And we kept going through that as like, yeah, that's proof of the stagnation, that we haven't moved beyond this much. So I don't know if you could talk about that idea.
One day I was really stoned, and I thought of that because I'm frustrated with the lack of progress, right? In all kinds of areas. You just mentioned information literacy, I think, and why aren't librarians talking about social media and the destruction social media is wreaking on information literacy? That's one thing that people could be talking about. They have power and money and stuff like that, right? But I brought it up in our teaching meeting the other day, and people were kind of like, oh yeah, we should talk about that. And like, I think they've been reading too much librarian literature, because librarian literature is so like out of touch. I mean, as far as in a lot of areas. So I think it is stagnant, not just librarianship. I think education in general is stagnant. I think that education in general spends a lot of time just going to conferences and copying other people and not producing new ideas, new frameworks, new ways of thinking, new paths. And that's what I think we're all about, is breaking out of the framework and creating new paths for advancement in different areas. In my areas, I love information literacy and culture. How does colonialism impact information, right? You get tainted information from a colonist point of view, and then you create knowledge out of that information. Well, the knowledge is totally fucked up because of that. I mean, it's just a one-sided thing. And so one of the things that I always say is like, the North is the Civil War champions, and we should never forget that. Another thing I like to say is, we need to be not copying each other and stagnating. Education is stagnant because that's all it does, is copy white dead guys pretty much still, and it's not getting anywhere. It's like a intellectual incest, inbred intellectualism that produces like this nothing, like no progress at all. I used to think it was because like we spend all our time developing tools. We're great tool makers. Western culture is great tool makers. But as far as like advancing, like you read the ancient Greeks, right? And you're like, wow, we haven't progressed. I mean, they were more advanced than us in a lot of ways. What's going on? I think that comes from a lot from just like the stagnation of education and people not coming up with new ideas. And that has everything to do with keeping people out. People that have those ideas are kept out of education and librarianship in general. And yeah, I could go on and on, but we were limited.
Autumn, do you want to follow up, Autumn?
That subtitle has always intrigued me as well. Ever since they, proposed the idea of Librarians with Spines, I remember designing the cover of it. But then I was like, okay, guys, we need a subtitle. And, within a couple weeks, they had brought me that subtitle. And we are so confident in that subtitle that is the subtitle of the second book too. So just so you guys know, like it's volume 2, but it's still like we can't get past this stagnation of information. And like Max said, social media is really doing a mind control number. I mean, you know, when Facebook has to go and ban QAnon, you know, what is happening? So, I mean, I feel like not only is it a stagnation and a cesspool of information, but we're going backwards, you know? And why is that? You know, and I'd like to maybe in volume 3 try and address some of that, you know? Why is this still, I mean, yes, you're right, you know, it's 2016 is when we wrote this, but this book is still absolutely even more relevant now. So it's pretty mind-boggling, but yeah, that's
We
what I got.
tried. Thank you, Autumn. We tried to come up with a better subtitle, and we're just like, I don't know. In the information Thunderdome, like we were just like going crazy with like subtitles, and then we realized that like whatever Max smoked to get that subtitle, we don't give a shit because it's really succinct. It's really impactful. It's really just a great subtitle, and it's even prescient, because like you guys, like we keep saying, um, I just, actually, like I spent most of my like most of the 2000s like teaching, and like and places most people didn't want to. So I got to see up close, like really what it means, like when things haven't really been updated, like when we keep teaching the same thing to disenfranchised kids and expect them to like want to be Captain Americas. It's like it's kind of silly. So yeah, like I really think like we keep trying to like get past that subtitle and like maybe come up with something more like just better, and it's totally impossible, and I kind of like it like that, um but and we tried, we really did. You should hear some of the horrible subtitles we had, but it's just we just can't better it. We really can't. Thanks, Summer.
I can ask the next question if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Katie. I'm head of collection strategies at Auraria.
Hi.
So in reading this, Yago, in your introduction, you wrote about the US publishing industry needing to, it says, get a clue, buy a vowel, and commence to address the seminal role librarians of all colors play in educating and sustaining our entire demos, not just communities that garner sizable property tax revenue. Working from acquisitions, this like definitely resonated with me. And I just was hoping you all could maybe talk more about, and I think you've already touched on this a little bit, but how you see whiteness shaping the creation and dissemination of knowledge from your role in the profession.
Wow, Katie, that's a great question. Um, and uh, I is it okay? Can I just say one thing? And can I, do you guys, Max, Autumn, is it okay if I just start the conversation? Would that be okay? Or the answer, like, Katie, that's such a important question. And um, I'll put it to you like this. Um, there's there's a great interview Baldwin does, and he's telling this person like, look, I have to kind of go by like what the actions that my country takes. I can't go by like the emotions that it has or the prayers and the thoughts, right? So we know, here's I think what we know as book people. In 1994 and 95, there's a salary survey. The salary survey is very clear. Salary survey is something that is, I think, for the most part, objective. You could argue either way, but I think the findings are conclusive. And the findings are like, guys, like 85% of the people, from the people that write the press releases to the people that sign the contracts, they're all Anglo. Like, what's going on? And so this has been at least publicly knowable, if you cared to find out, since 1994, 95. I think now publishers to come now and to be like, oh, we want to do something about EDI is not only disingenuous, but it's just like really, it, it's it almost adds insult to injury, you know, like in a way, because it's a persistent problem. We've known about it. Whether we choose to address it is really, really the question, you know. And like again, I don't know what the fixes would be, but I'm not sure that internships are gonna solve it. You know what I mean? I will say something else, and because I think this needs to be said. If you're a small press, like I'm a nobum. I mean, I'm a micro press at best, right? Inchas, that is. Unless you have a real kind of like a pedigree, and I'm not just talking about ethnicity. I'm talking about business-wise. Small press distribution won't mess with you. They won't even give you the time of day. Now, what does that do? Well, it severely limits your ability to get something you write out to a greater public. It may not, it's not necessarily censorship, but it's not censorship. Because what it's saying is like, well, if you have the means and the pedigree, then we will mess with you. But if you don't, then we'll ghost you and then pretend and then write a press release about how we're doing EDI work. And that's the part that I think I have a very big problem with, because I would prefer. I grew up kind of like not in the South. Miami's not the South, but the one thing about the southern part of the United States is you always, I feel like, you know where you stand with people. So if like like if I don't feel like they want to have the EDI conversation, I would know that. I feel a lot more like in the South than in like maybe New York even, or definitely LA. Like I never knew who I'm talking to in LA, you know, like what side of the fence they're on, you know? Literally. Thank you for that question, Max, Autumn.
So as far as whiteness goes in designing this book, I have quite a few degrees, and so I'm very familiar with academia, right? I've read my fair share of textbooks. So when I was designing this book, I wanted to make sure that this book wasn't your typical academic, like in the design that it was, in hoping that these, sketches of the people. So I purposefully did not want to put photographs of our authors in the books because of that whiteness. I didn't want people to snap judge on the person, the author who was doing this. I wanted people to see this sketch of the author, this artist representation of them. So you couldn't see color, you couldn't see. I was hoping to take some of that whiteness out and make the design a little bit more accessible. And I know that, we have a lot of academics writing the chapters in there, but I feel like they've done a good enough job at thoroughly explaining as they write that it's even accessible to somebody who just wants to pick up this book and read it. And collaborating with Max and Yago, has shown me so much. It has taught me, like even more than I can say. I've been doing anti-racist work and research and reading and so much, but Librarians with Spines is the action that I'm taking to make this happen. There's a lot of intention in the design of this book, and I can see the future of this series. I'm the one that was like, hey, this would be great as a series of volumes. Like, if we could envision this Librarians with Spines as a journal almost, an academic journal. I was like, I want to design this going into the future. And Max and Yago were like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do it. And, so my background in academia had shown me that there's journals, but this is unlike anything else that out there. Like this, I'm hoping that this is more accessible to people outside of academia, but also that it is something that stands up to to people who are forward thinking and will show this to future students. I think it needs to be part of a curriculum in the future. Max?
Yeah, I shared a couple of links in the chat. One's to a video I show in my information literacy course, just asking students to think about how colonialism impacts information and knowledge. The other one's a talk on whiteness and colonialism. And whiteness is embedded all around us in everything we do, the words that I'm speaking here. It's just embedded everywhere. So critical self-reflection is such an important tool to use in that analysis. Whenever I'm looking at something, I think back about how I react. How did I take that in? What are the words I'm using? Why should I describe my pronouns, etc.? Just all of this stuff has been an imposition, and I didn't realize it until a later age. That wow, like it really distorted the way I understand the world and the way other people understand the world, and this is why the world partly. This is the reason why the world is screwed up. I mean, we live in a country that's unrepentantly, especially right now, unrepentantly genocidal. I think about that and I juxtapose that with, the European Holocaust and how that's viewed. And why is that so? Why are things so different when they're looked at like two different things almost? But they're not. And then to see people argue so vehemently about the names of people who committed genocide and were pro-slavery traitors, like General Lee. Like the guy went to West Point, then he stabbed his homies in the back using their own techniques. He went to school with them. He knew the techniques they use. That's like the most traitorous you can get. And there's still people that are like, no. That's why I'm wearing a shirt. Like, I don't think the Civil War is over. I think that the South got off easy, and if you read the historical documents, they were back in government a few years later. They're already encroaching, and what we're seeing now is directly related to that. So, sorry, I don't mean to stray, but it's all related. The publishing industry is directly related to whiteness and the sense that it's run by them.
In some, sorry not to interrupt, Max, in some very specific ways, like, our textbooks are dictated, by what happens in Texas. And, I taught in the, what I call the laboratories of New York City, where they come in every couple of years with a different like teaching kind of method, but I think we're all talking about something similar. Let me give you guys something like real world, like from my experience, like working in the library. Like when I was an adult librarian, I had about $20,000 a year to spend on collection development, right? And a very real conversation that I would have with a lot of my colleagues, I would ask them a simple question, and I would say, dude, has any Latino person ever come up to you and said, tienen el nuevo de James Patterson? And if that's true, like if no Latino person's ever asked for a James Patterson novel, why is it that most librarians will automatically buy the translation of the damn James Patterson novel, thinking that a Latino patron is going to be like, oh my God, thank the Lord, like I found the one translated copy of James Patterson, right? So, like in other words, there are these assumptions that we're making about the Spanish dominant patrons that come into our branch. and there are these assumptions that like monolingual speakers are making about what interests them. I almost feel a little strange, you know, like for example, I went through an MFA program here, and here in the United States, like the modern era is like J. Alfred Prufrock, T.S. Eliot, which I think is complete bullshit. Excuse my French. Speaking of France, César Vallejo in Paris is doing the shit way before. So, I mean, really, it all depends on who you ask, right? Because if you ask poets, I think in Latin America, they're going to be like, Vallejo's the G. But if you ask MFA students here that come out of the factory who started the, you know, the modern era, you're going to get T.S. Eliot, right? So again, the subtitle and this whole idea is this idea that we stop making assumptions about, like, you know, a lot of people forget, you know, Latin America has, you know, like Nobel Peace Prize winners, like lots of them. In fact, let me tell you something you may not know. Many Latin American poets who are astrophysicists or studied astrophysics, right? So you have Nicanor Parra with anti-poetry. You had Huidobro. You had a bunch of people, poets, who were really invested in the physical sciences, but we don't get that history, right? And it's just idea that like the prominence, everything is always like looking towards, again, like the West, which is fine, but even in that look, there's things that are forgotten, or there's discrepancies, right? So it's really just that, you know, like think about how many times a Spanish dominant person is going to come to you and say, where's the new, you know, I don't know, Lincoln lawyer, you know what I mean? Like they're gonna probably ask you for Cuauhtemoc, you know, who's a popular person that, you know, tells them about their kids, like a self-help dude. You know, who knows what they're gonna ask for? I mean, it's also kind of wrong to assume that they're gonna ask about one specific thing, right? But we're talking about preferences, we're talking about things that people look for and pick, you know. So thank you for that question, Summer. Oh, Max, sorry.
One more quick thing. It used to happen to me all the time. I don't do it anymore. So I'd look at libraries' Spanish collections and I'd be like, oh, where's all your Spanish stuff? Like, it usually be like whatever, 10, 25 books on a shelf, not very many. There's a place by here. We have a lot of agriculture, a lot of people from down south living up here, either permanently or not. And I asked the librarians, where's your books in Spanish, man? They don't come in here. Those people don't come in here. Well, maybe if you had some books for them, they might come in. You know, I think that's an important thing to think about. Yeah, great question.
Thank you really much, very much. This is great. And like the first thing, Yago, that you said about like, because I work in acquisitions, like working with book jobbers and trying to get them to incorporate small presses, like they've told us that they won't. And then right now we are getting so many DEI lists of like, hey, maybe you guys want to purchase it. It's like, they're like selling. What it's like pandemic sales, certainly right now that we see, and then around DEI too right now.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. I mean, you know, to be fair, the only way we can do is by circumventing the whole distribution model. Like we are distributing it ourselves. And even, you know what, I wanted to say this, Autumn figured out a way for us to even give less money to Amazon, because it used to be we had to list our ebook with them because of their market. I mean, why wouldn't you, right? But because Autumn is such a brainiac, she figured out a way for us to just kind of like distribute it ourselves through PayHip and Pay a Book Funnel. And like it's only $1, like they charge you $1 out of like maybe 8 or something, but it's still like that's our dollar, and I think we earned it, you know. So thank you for that question. And Summer, I'm sorry, I think we took like 20 minutes with that question, but it was, I mean, it's a good one, it's really a good one. So and Katie too, thank you so much. Please, we're almost done, I'm sorry, gosh.
We still got 20 minutes.
Okay, sorry.
I'll ask a question. I'm Kelsey. I am head of discovery and metadata at Auraria. So my question is about our profession and one of our biggest barriers to entry. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the MLS requirement for librarian positions.
Max, do you mind if I go first? Would you like to go first?
Go ahead.
Kelsey, Autumn, the only reason Autumn, you know what, you may have an MLS and I don't know. Do you have an MLS too, Autumn? Oh, okay, I'm just saying you're like you're like brainiac level, so like I don't know what you got, you know. So I went to Queens College, super traditional program. And so traditional that they had, you know, they almost got their accreditation, you know, so like they had to incorporate the I real quick. All of the I from the MLS that I have, I kind of taught myself. Um, but that's again kind of like in line with like what we're talking about. I just want you to know, Kelsey, though, but this whole enterprise of Inchas Press, this whole book starts with me learning enough HTML to display like the first issues of a literary journal. And so like it's weird, you know, like I feel like we have taken advantage of technology for more, like us, Inchas, me, Max, Autumn, for more than just like looking at cat pics and stuff, which are I love looking at cat vids, by the way, and pics. But um but I feel like we really have tried to use the technology to our advantage, or at least for leverage. So I think, you know, I got in a couple of months ago. Someone I like a year ago, I talked to someone, right, and they came up to me and they said, "You you told me not to go to what's the expensive school in Boston? Not expensive, but you know, a school in Boston, right? Simmons."
Simmons.
Yeah, and I was like, dude, I I never said I never said you shouldn't go to Simmons. I just said go to San Jose State and pay like a third. So I guess what I'm saying is the I part, I feel like if you care about the work, you're gonna have to learn yourself, right? Your program could kind of compel you through projects and stuff like that to do that. You know what I mean? But really it's about the degree. For me, it's about the degree and having making sure that the city pays you this amount so you can pay your rent and actually do the great work that you do, whether it's in technical services or on the reference desk, right? So for me, like the I part, I think you're supposed to kind of teach yourself, which is, and it's not intuitive, and there's a whole I in the degree, right? But I don't know how real it is, you know, until you have to do it for yourself.
Man, I don't even got that I thing. I got an MLA. Master of Library Science, I'm sorry, MLS. So the I thing is confusing to me. And what's confusing to me is the lack of intellectual pursuits in library information science. It's super like stupid, dumb, low level, like not digging deep, not critical. And when I say that, that's generalizing, right? There's certainly people in LIS who are deep thinkers, but not enough. And like as soon as I got into LIS, I was like, oh wow, like, you know, metadata. I see metadata and graffiti everywhere I go. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a long time ago when remixing and stuff on computers was new. I was like, whoa, that's a hip hop concept. Boom. How does that relate to hip hop? There's all kinds of stuff in LIS that's super fertile.
Hmm.
But again, people that have other ideas aren't allowed in to create new things.
Even the IMAX, sorry not to interrupt, like right, even the information part, right? Like if you take into account the digital divide, like what does that say? Like I guess what I'm saying is we're just so enamored of the idea of this technology that we forget that there's a whole segment of people that are being completely left out. And I don't mean just because they can't access Wi-Fi. I mean, like, think about this. Like I used to help people like fill out applications. Dude, there are no paper applications anymore. If you don't know how to jump around on an application from field to field, you're completely lost. And I actually think that most corporations want people, they want to dissuade people. That's how they dissuade them, is by saying, no, 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 you have to do it in this mode. Because the reality is, you know, if you teach public school, you realize there is no just one mode. Like you gotta be able to teach it 57, you know, varieties, like kinds. You know, you gotta be like really adaptable. And so, you know, there's this idea. Autumn, what do you think about, like, what do you think about access information? You know what I mean, in academia? Have you seen something like that, Autumn? Like, what's your take?
Let me finish real quick, man.
Oh shoot! Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry,
Too
Max. What
many
a
of you there.
jerk. I'm so
Moderate. No,
sorry, bro.
I'm
Like,
joking.
shut up.
Don't worry. Don't worry. So
Shut.
just one last thing. I think that people are often exploited in libraries. I was a library worker for like 20 years before I got my library degree, right? And people, if you're going to have that breakdown between like, I got an MLS and you don't, and stuff like that, then don't make classified people that get paid really low compared to somebody with a degree work the same job. That's wrong, man. That's super wrong. And if they don't need a degree, then get rid of that classist bullshit and pay them the same. I don't understand. I never did understand that at all. Like I used to think all the time, like, man, I could do that job. I don't need a fucking degree. Do that. Now I went to library school. I was like, oh, they're gonna teach me some heady stuff, man, like some secret knowledge. No. So it's really it's fascinating to me. It's almost it's like a yeah. That's all I want to say. Sorry, but go ahead.
So I don't have a library degree, but I have a business degree and a graphics design degree. And I can say the same thing, similar to what all of you are saying. With you don't need any of these degrees. The nice thing about going to school is there's this standard of things that we all have to learn. But I think that our education system needs to step up a little bit more and give us all more relevant and current information. Like my graphic design degree, my professors would send me to watch YouTube videos. And I was like, why am I paying, $20,000 to watch a YouTube video? This is crazy. But I mean, it was effective. I know what I'm doing. But where is the most current information? Where is the diversity training? Where, we need to be pushing our education systems to be better and more relevant, is my thing with academia. Like I love school. I would be in it all the time if I could, because I love learning. But I also realize that they don't know. I have learned more with Max and Yago than my degrees have ever taught me. So, and along the lines of what Max is saying is, I think it's really a white supremacy and colonial capitalistic pay scale that drives me crazy, because I am a entrepreneur. I'm a self-employed person. I have the same degrees that other graphic designers have, but they are men and don't have families and can go out and work for big corporations, right? I don't have that option because I have a family and it's now a pandemic and we have to do all these social distancing things. So I feel like there's, some parallels between all of these degrees we can get, no matter what the field, and the wages we can earn. So I'm excited for the change that we're experiencing in America. I know it's hard. These growing pains are hard, but I am really excited that we're starting to wake up and see some change.
Autumn's is totally right. The income wage discrepancy is just ridiculous, and the fact that it's still a kind of an issue is, I just don't even know what to think of that. And we really do have to push. It's complete nonsense smothered with bullshit, and it's just unnecessary. And so, you know, this is our way of kind of maybe fighting back and thinking of ways to, you know, it's for us, it's not, it may not seem much, but you know, it's a way that we have of pouring our energies and our frustrations into these things, and ensuring, you know, the as a librarian in a big organization, I see the differences. And you know, there's clearly a hierarchy in organizations, and you can get in a lot of trouble for not following it. And so it's very interesting for me to see that, because it's a fine line that you have to really walk. I did wanted to say one thing just about the whole enterprise, guys, and you may not know this, and I surely didn't know this, okay? But you know, when I started out with Max and Autumn, the first thing we talked about is kind of like this thing that that Bowker runs, this idea, right? So like each book, we know what like an ISBN does, right? But there's this idea that like the whole process, putting a book together, getting the people, it's just like way too much money. I can't do that. There's no way I can do that. And we want to make sure that you understand that we can't help you in that instance, because the challenge is in your head. It's not really like on paper. On paper, let me explain something to you that a lot of people don't know. I didn't know this, and I grew up around books my whole life. I studied books and I didn't know this. One ISBN from Bowker will cost you $125. 10 ISBNs should cost you $11.25, right? Because 125 times 10, right? In fact, 10 Bowker ISBNs cost you $3.25, a third of what you think it is. So in reality, if you buy 10, you're really paying $32 per ISBN. Okay, for 100, the number goes up to 500. So you get 100 ISBNs for $500. At that rate, you're paying $5 for an ISBN. So something that seems super prohibitive at the onset, like 125, like, you know, they try to hit you with the QRC code, barcode. I mean, this is how they make money, right? So obviously, my what I'm trying to transmit here, what Max, Autumn, and I have found a way to do, is to do the work ourselves, put on all the damn hats, but then really have final say. Really have final say about what gets published and how it looks and who gets, you know, and really how it interacts with the world. And guys, let me tell you, that really makes all the difference for us, because it's not about the money. Clearly, we all have day jobs. And let me tell you, I moved to LA 10 years ago. I don't trust poets who tell me they make a living on their poetry. I don't trust them, because sooner or later they're gonna ask to sleep on your couch. So like, you know, like we all have day jobs because we have families and we have these things that we do. We have these planets that we keep in orbit, and that's what we do. But we have found a way to collaborate in a really kind of like almost utopic setting where, like, you know, there is no structure. There is like, we don't have a charter. There is no structure. Again, because from day one, what we said was do as you go. Like, we're learning as we go. Like, we're now thinking about a charter and like what our values are. Like, we all knew what our values are starting. They were like unsaid. And now we're not dealing, but now the challenge is like, how do we ensure that those values are writ large? Like, how do we ensure that people know what those values are? Because people may not know what our values are. And we want to make sure, you know, which is why, like, again, we're so grateful, you know, to be able to interact with you guys. But please become become a creator of content. The thing is on your side for you to become a creator of content, to take on that role, curate, to be like, this is what I think should be out there. And I think the audiences come to you, you know.
So can I just ask all of you, I assume you all have degrees. Can I just like ask, like, what if you had read this book and a couple of the other ones you had read in your reading group during school, like in your first or second year of school? Would that have changed your paths? Would it have set you up earlier? Would you have been able to make more change than where you are in your careers right now? I'm just kind of curious.
We actually have a couple people who are in school. I don't want to put them on the spot, but they're in school right now.
I can talk. I'm in school. Honestly, this is fairly similar to a lot of the stuff I read in school. It's pretty much, I don't think it's like standard, but like DU does a lot. I go to DU. A lot of this stuff is pretty incorporated, I think. I don't know if anybody else who goes there thinks the same, but yeah, I think this is very much kind of in line with a lot of the like classes, some of the classes that we've taken, particularly like the survey course at the beginning of the year kind of touches a little bit on this stuff, but there's also a class I'm thinking of called Privilege and Equity that they've been doing for a couple of years, and a lot of the reading is like this.
Do you think this is going to inform your path going forward? Like, is it going to, will you
Yes, I mean,
a specific job?
as much as anything else does, I think this, I mean, I think that I think the entire program is very much steeped in this kind of stuff. I'm not exactly sure if this is going to be a personal guide for me, but I can see it being useful for everybody. I mean, I don't really like think of books in that kind of context. And I don't think that everybody has to think about books in the same way. But yeah, I think the book is totally worthwhile and can fit pretty seamlessly into a lot of the courses that I take at DU.
Thank you, Anya. It's really kind. Thank you for your feedback. That was really kind. Thank you.
For me, I got the worst master's in library science education I can think of. I should have gone to Queens. I went to Long Island University, which has been in and out of accreditation. Teachers didn't, I learned about what a fax machine was in a class. So there was none of this, but this was, 2000s. So maybe things are a little different. But I think it would have, if I had taken any kind of equity classes or different kinds of knowledge creation classes or anything like that, that was just like the history of the book and very, very old fashioned things, I would have stood out a little bit ahead of where I have come to now. And so I have to thank my colleagues for just having the most amazing ideas and thinking out of the box of how knowledge is created, and that there are other stories out there that are being, paved over. I've learned quite a bit just in the past few years, which is sad because I have been in librarianship for, 15 years or something.
Is there another question? Summer, Katie, and Kelsey, is there another question, or can we take some more questions? What do you think, Summer?
I think we could take one more. Does anybody want to ask theirs?
I can ask mine, although I don't know, it might be kind of hard to answer in the time that we have left. But so in the chapter Crit Lib Management, the author made a comment that the concept of diversity is problematic because it others the group in focus while letting the dominant culture remain unchanged or completely unnoticed. And I was just wondering if you had another approach than the promotion of diversity for libraries, or would you say that it's not just like an either or, focusing on diversity or not? It could be maybe focusing on inclusivity, something like that. Or do you have any thoughts about that?
Just real quick for me, I was saying for a while that I moved past equity, diversity, and inclusion, that I'm into anti-oppression now. And I think anti-oppression work is the most important work that we could be doing. Equity, diversity, and inclusion is kind of like begging to be at the table and never getting there, never being allowed to be there. So I'm into anti-oppression, which extends to all marginalized people, not just anti-racism. Right now, I'm focusing on anti-racism to develop a framework to branch out into anti-oppression work myself. That's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to help other people get to that point too, because it's never going to happen unless you become an anti-oppression type of person. Like racism, right? Racism, you're either racist or you're anti-racist. There's no, well, I'm not racist and I'm neutral and I haven't done anything wrong. If you're not doing anything against racism, you're helping racism. So that's my point of view personally, and I think that libraries should start to incorporate that and get away from the false neutralities that we hide behind.
It's interesting. It's interesting what Max is saying, because like, I think there was like I read somewhere there was a library district. Oh no, it was some kind of nursing or healthcare facility that voiced some solidarity with BLM, and then like the sheriff like canceled the contract with them, or like wanted to stop like visiting, like, what I mean, this place for safety. And so like, it's kind of strange for a lot of people. Maybe it's not a political decision, but I guess what we're saying too is that like, we have to start, like, I have to start with the idea that I am biased and I need to reduce it. And like, even being a person of color, I think a lot of the times that's a magical integer that's forgotten, is people assume that like people of color can't be racist or need to reduce their bias and racism. And that's certainly true. I think really the key is like, let me give you a real life example. Before moving to LA, like, I lived in Harlem for 5 years on 138th and Lenox, and like, it was a neighborhood that my parents, who are immigrants to this country, Latino immigrants, told me always to stay out of. And I mean, I'm sure you guys understand this too, but there is this real like schism between Latinos and blacks, and it's kind of unsaid. And a lot of immigrants are like, we don't want to we don't want to fraternize with that community, and it's completely BS, and it's completely erroneous and wrong. My point is, I lived for 5 years in a building in the heart of Harlem, and every day at 7 in the morning, all of my neighbors were going to work, just like me. I was going to teach in the Bronx, and they were going to go do their things. My point is that I was pretty much the only Latino in the building, and it was kind of like that leap of faith that really, I don't know, allowed me to really embrace the community. Like, I felt I was embraced by Harlem, not so much that I made my little space there. And I think to do that, it was scary, and it really, because you don't want to get rejected. You don't want to get, but the reality is that these are leaps of faith. Me, Max, and Autumn working together is a leap of faith. You showing up here today is also like a leap of faith, and we really appreciate it, because we really kind of do need it, and not in some weird kind of religious way, although I have a headset and I am starting a cult. So if you guys are interested, let me know. I can send you a headset through the mail. Just have to give me all of your life savings. But no, real talk. Thank you for the leap of faith, and coming out today and expressing your opinions and telling us what you thought about our book. It's really from the heart, and we really, I don't want to speak for Max or Autumn, but we really appreciate it. Real talk, guys.
Thank you very much. This was great. And we appreciate your work. And when is volume 3 coming out?
So I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. So we've been having this conversation about time and like what it means for us, because again, we all have families and stuff. We don't want to hurry it, so we're gonna give. So right now, as it stands, we have 5 chapters. But we'd like to see if we can get a couple more. So I have some people, like I know a person who did disaster service work when the pandemic hit over here in LA, like I was doing, so they said they wanted to write one. And so there's some outstanding chapters. And again, guys, if you have something that you can quickly convert into a chapter, we're going to give people till February of 2021. And we think that's much more reasonable, especially with the pandemic. So guys, honestly, we are very like that. We would welcome reading like cool essays, and like I said, we really don't care. For us, legitimacy is this, like you guys. But real talk, like in our first volume, like the president of ALA has a chapter. You know what I mean? It's not like we're just not like hanging out with like people in the bodega asking their opinions. I mean, this is like bona fide serious work. Not that bodega hanging out is not serious work. Real talk. But this is very great work, and we're so happy that you guys were able to see it. Thank you.
And in our next book, we are going to try and have some bilingual chapters as well. We are going to try and decentralize this English speaking system that we have. We're trying to push our boundaries a little bit more and more. Please, if you guys do have any ideas or do want to write a chapter or know somebody who might want to, reach out. We would love to hear your ideas.
And just FYI, I'm gonna put right now my email in the chat just in case you guys have any questions. Thank you so much. I have to go. I have a 23-month-old. I have to go pick up right now and try to work from home from. So guys, that's my personal email in the chat. Max and Autumn, if you guys feel comfortable, you do the same. But I gotta split and go pick up a baby. Hey guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Summer. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you, all your questions.
Thank you.
Gracias, Javier, Max, Autumn, everybody, the jellyfish behind me. Really appreciate it. Have a great one, okay?
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all.
Take care.
Bye, thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao.